No time like the present, I guess, even though I keep procrastinating things to the present ends up being later than usual. Welcome to Tiny Tapestries, where, as the name implies, we make tiny tapestries. I've made a couple of these before, but I haven't actually just made a video where I just make one or two. So that's the goal of this video today, is just making a couple tiny tapestries. And what tiny tapestries are just friendship bracelet patterns that aren't big enough to be friendship bracelets, so I put them on like a little piece of a little wooden cylinder, and then I tie all the strings around, and they end up being like itty bitty tiny tapestries, and I absolutely love them unless they're kind of creepy, which I have made one that was kind of creepy before. But anyway, that's what we're doing today, so I guess it's time to start. I decided that this was going to be the pattern that I would make, and yeah, so let's start making it. If you want to do it yourself, you can find the pattern in the description box below where I'll put it. And as always for tiny tapestries, you start out with the most boring part, which is just putting all the strings on the wooden stick before you get to finally start knotting. And putting the strings on usually takes like 5 to 10 minutes, so it's not all that interesting. You're just there making like the loop knot things. And for the first row, I realized that the light from my camera wasn't actually on the bracelet, so it gave it like a greenish tint. And that tint kind of kept going because the sun was coming through my curtains, giving everything a greenish tint, so sorry about that. But yeah, this is just me starting the pattern, and this pattern was 22 by 26, so that means that there are 26 rows of knots, and there are 22 base strings. And this wasn't too complicated of a pattern. The only really downside to it was at some point we switched 3 colors pretty quickly, so it was kind of hard to keep track of which string goes where and how to get over and under some parts. But other than that, the only real downside to making this was it's kind of time consuming. It took me about 3 hours to make this. But, you know, since I was procrastinating doing homework, it was easy to complete since it just went and did it. Yeah. I'd say this would probably be like an intermediate level alpha just because of how many times you have to switch strings. But it's a smaller one, so it doesn't take you as long to make. And it's really cute. Like, I would definitely make the other variations of this pattern if I felt like procrastinating more and actually doing something a tiny bit productive, which would be making something. Oh yeah, and my mom called this, once it was finished, a kitten cone, and I found that so cute. I'm entertained by the simplest of things, but I loved that name for it. I do want to actually I have names that come nameless till I come to one point. Who knows? But I'd say probably the most complicated part of the bracelet would have been the cat portion, just because you have to switch through 3 different colors. As soon as you got to the cone portion, you would only have to switch through the black and the yellow of the cone with the white, and you wouldn't really have to switch through it all that often. It just wasn't a huge problem. You would also have these bigger blocks of color, where with the cat, you might have just like one section, just like a single knot of gray, and then you'd have to switch back to black or something. Or the face, you would have like one knot of black, one knot of gray, 2 knots of black, 1 knot of gray, and then more gray, and it was kind of annoying to have to switch back and forth that many times. But after I got done with the cat part, it was like smooth sailing. It was a lot easier, and I just sped through the rest of it. And I only had not that to do that I had to do during this entire bracelet, which I was happy about, because that means I only made one big mistake. Now, the colors I used were, I had a black, a gray, a dark gray, a white for the background, of course, and a yellowish for the cone. So that's 5 colors. I just went off of the regular pattern. I didn't try and change anything up because I loved how the regular pattern looked. It also had some nice variations, but I loved the original, so I just went with the original. While I was knotting, I did have to replace, because I just didn't make a long enough string for it, I did have to replace the white string, the black string, and the yellow string because I just didn't quite make it long enough, so I needed more string to finish up all the knots. And by the end, the white string will get really short, and you'll see me trying to make all the last knots with this tiny piece of string, which in my opinion is kind of funny because it looks a bit stupid. So you'll just see me like using a skewer to try and hang out little itty knots. But all in all, this bracelet was fun. Well, this tiny tapestry, it's a bracelet pattern. This tiny tapestry was really fun to make. It looks so cute. The only thing a little bit iffy about it is the face. Just to me looks it's just two lines with a little line in between. But I will say in the video it looks a little bit better and cuter. Well, kind of. But that's about it with this tiny tapestry. I just have 2 more rows before I finish it, and then I just have to cut off all the excess thread and then tie a little string from one end to the other to just finish it off. And here's the end where I try and make all of those tiny little knots. And once I was finished, I just cut off the excess string into a kind of like triangle shape because I thought that would look really cute. I made sure to score the wood where I tied the string so that the string would more likely stay in that place and not want to move. And then the tiny tapestry was done. And it's a little cat in a cone and it's so cute. I really love this pattern. I hope you all have an amazing day. And here's a machine that I made in a class where it just pulls a string taut. I find it kind of stupid and useless, but I really like it. So I hope you enjoyed.